like you know I'm paid in full. Hey, what's going on? It's another episode of the Teel podcast, and like always, I got another great guest, Sandy Spades. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good.
I'm excited to talk to you. I've been hearing people have been kind of giving me a little rundown, so I'm excited to talk to you and talk about some of the things that you've done and just get your thoughts on some things. So, how long were you in the tattoo industry?
I started tattooing in 1987. I had my first little shop in Hope, Arkansas, from 87 to 89, 90. It's hard for me to remember. I moved to Canada for like a year and a half. And then I came back and opened the Dermagraphics studio in 1992.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Dermagraphics is older than me. Wow. And there you have it.
It was the first tattoo shop in Texarkana.
Really? That was the first one?
There was somebody tattooing out of the flea market that used to be down on 82 before that, but yeah.
So explain what mindset were you in where you're like, I'm going to start the first one here in town? Was it like...
Well, no, I came back and then I was living with my friend Lisa and I was tattooing a couple people. She was a Marine Corps recruiter.
Oh, wow.
And I was tattooing a couple people that she knew. And they're like, you should open a shop. And I was like, yeah, there isn't a shop here. Why is there not a shop here? Like Texarkana wasn't as big then as it is now, which really it hasn't grown that much, but it's grown in businesses, but not population wise. Anyways, so I just did it. I didn't really think about it. It was, Yeah.
It was just like a hole there, which I mean, most like
it
a
was
good
a hole,
good
and
business.
I was like, well, sure. I mean, I didn't. It wasn't like I had anything to lose.
How did this?
I didn't have any money, so I just.
Did the city? Was there any resistance then?
Yes. So what happened was I opened, and then somebody from the city came and they said, "You have to be approved by the city to do this," and blah blah. And we had to shut down. And it took like 2 weeks, as I recall, to go through this process, and it was nerve wracking because I didn't know what to expect. I was the first one that had ever done that.
Yeah.
And I went, and I think back then people still really equated tattoos with kind of seedy individuals, like thugs and,
right.
Sailors and bikers and this type of thing. And I'm relatively articulate and educated. And when I presented myself before I had to go before zoning and planning and then before the city, I wasn't what they were expecting. I didn't have near the tattoos I've got now. And they let me open, and I was really happy. So then it just went from there. Mm-hmm.
I think that, perception on tattoos is 100% changed.
Oh, yeah.
Now
There's like
crazy.
TV shows, and it's like, somebody sees somebody with a bunch of tattoos, like, oh, you got money. Or whatever, because it's expensive.
It is expensive. Were tattoo, are they more expensive now? Well, I know like prices are higher, but like,
well, yeah.
But like relative to like,
yes, very much so.
They're more expensive now than they were.
Very much so. Yeah,
so if it was
the industry has pushed itself up. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm being neutral on that. That's not but I tell the younger people, and I know that these prices are ridiculous by today's standards, but I paid for my house doing $10 names and $25 hearts and banners. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't a rock star. I just did good, solid tattoos at reasonable prices. And by golly, that's how I paid for my house.
Wow.
I wasn't trying to do $200 and $300 tattoos. I didn't want to, because I could whip that small stuff out quick and make more money in the long run.
Wow,
and I enjoyed it. I love the, I love the busy rush and all that stuff.
Right.
And in the early days, I was also going to college. I ended up graduating from SAU, and I was driving back and forth every day.
Wow.
Every day. And I worked the tattoo shop by myself every day. So yeah, my life was really busy, but I was a whole lot younger back then. So that's helpful.
Right. Where do you think you got your drive from? Your drive to like do all this stuff? Like, cause it's kind of like,
I left home when I was 16 and I went through some pretty hungry periods in my life. And I swore to myself I'd never do that again. And I just have always really worked a lot. Yeah. I just really worked a lot.
Does that give you peace working?
Yeah, It does. Now
I'm kind of like that.
I still am. Like I totally, I own Modern Primitives too. Me and my ex-husband opened that in 95. And I love my customers and I love the shop and everything like that. But I know eventually one day that will also come to an end. No time soon. I really love it. I'm still having a lot of fun. I've got a great crew and I love my customers. So I'm not as driven as, I don't want to work 12 hours a day anymore.
Right.
And I don't have to, thank goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. I don't have to do that anymore. But I'm glad I did it when I did because that put me in the position I'm in now.
Do you still tattoo ever?
Every now and then for friends.
Yeah.
I quit tattooing in the shop about 2 years ago. And I just rented out the rooms. So I've been really focused on Modern Primitives for the last, what year is this? 2024? I'd say for the last 9 years, 8 or 9 years. Mm-hmm.
Which it's booming, right? From what I can understand.
I do really well. I've got a really good crew, and I just can't say enough about the folks that work for me. They really make the shop what it is. I think and my customers too. I have really loyal and good customers, and
perception's changing on even stores like that too, because you probably got like a negative. Oh,
well, let me tell you. When we started, So where the shop is now isn't where it was to begin with. There was a building in the parking lot. A lot of people don't remember that, especially younger people your age. You don't know that at all. But there was another building in the parking lot where we started. So we opened it as a piercing. My ex-husband was a piercer, and we opened it as a metaphysical shop. So there were no pipes, nothing like that in there. And it was because back in the mid-90s, there was this huge push for the pagan culture society, I guess you'd say, pagan folks. And we just decided to open, it's kind of like a hippie shop, like with crystals and all the things and tie-dye and all that kind of stuff. And piercing was huge back then. And of course, it was the only shop in town that did it. So we opened it, and then people started asking, "Oh, do you have water pipes? Do you have hand pipes?" And the laws back then were a little bit more stringent than what they are now. It was a little scarier, and I was like really scared. I was like, "No, we cannot have these things. We'll be in trouble." And my ex-husband, who was a risk taker more so than I was, he's like, "No, it'll be fine." He talked to a lawyer, and the lawyer's like, "Oh, well, if you do this and this, it'll be fine." And it just kind of went from there. And then, it just turned into, what it is now. We moved out of the old building in 2007 into the building that I'm in now. And we tore the old building down in like 2009. About 2 years later, we just tore it down and then paved the parking lot. Yeah.
How did you ever have to deal with like people having negative thoughts about it? Like,
when we first opened, because this area is very Christian based,
right?
And a lot of people thought that we were devil worshipers, which that's not what paganism is about. I'm nothing. Okay, let's get that straight.
Yeah.
But anyways, so we had people in our parking lot trying to give out pamphlets to deter people from coming in the shop and blah blah blah. And of course, we, called the cops. We're like, "You can't do this in our parking lot." It's,
Yeah.
And anyways, but that kind of died down. And now people are like, it's no big deal.
Right. Yeah. Because it's definitely people's opinions have changed.
Yes. Things have changed. That was 30 years ago. That's
right.
a lot has changed since then. Yeah, absolutely.
I wonder, you just see tattoos on people. You see, especially like even like weed getting legalized in lots of places. I know it's not like all the way legal in Texas, but it's more normal. Like you see stuff now. Like
it has changed a lot. It's changed. I don't know if you told me 30 years ago it would be like it is now. I'd be like, no, that'll never happen.
Yeah, so you didn't see this coming.
No, because that was even before. I think California was the first state to legalized medical marijuana in 96. And so we opened in 95, which no thought of water pipes or anything at that time. And then after California moved forward, then all the other states started moving forward, and it just was like the domino effect. Yeah.
Right. Well, I listen to Joe Rogan all the time, and he's always ranting about like something in, I think like in the 70s when they were going against marijuana basically, and that it kind of got tied in with other things in like this big anti-drug movement.
Right. Well, there's a very famous, there's a famous quote that came out of the Nixon White House. And I think it was John Ehrlichman that was the one talking about it. But they said they wanted to control the hippies.
Right.
You know, this was like late 60s.
Right.
I think Nixon was first in office in 68. So they wanted something to control the hippies because, you know, they were very anti-war and they were turning the public sentiment against the Vietnam War.
Right.
And the Vietnam War was a huge moneymaker for the government, of course. And they said, well, these hippies want to, smoke this marijuana. And if we control marijuana, we control the hippies and we can control the blacks, is what they said. You can look this quote up online.
No, I believe it.
It's part of it's on tape, actually. You can hear the tape. And he said, we control the hippies and the blacks if we do something. It was already illegal, but they did more. They like made it.
Right.
They scheduled it. That's what it was. That's what it was. They created the scheduling. Yes, because the Controlled Substance Act wasn't a thing up to that point. So they did that. And so it wasn't just, it's the government.
Yeah. And then they rolled out the propaganda, there was like, Joe Rogan always shows this video of, they show the marijuana melts your brain or it's like, this is your brain on drugs or whatever.
Oh,
like
yeah, from the 80s.
That type of stuff where they just like demonize it, which me personally, I can't handle weed. Like, I don't
smoke. I don't smoke weed. I've got AFib, which is a heart condition.
Oh, wow.
And it just doesn't. I don't like. I like being in control of my thoughts.
Me too. Yeah.
Too much. You know what I'm saying? So, but it's whatever. I mean, alcohol, in my opinion, is way worse.
Oh, dude, alcohol.
That's way worse for folks.
I quit alcohol in 2023, January 1st. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I drank like every day.
Really?
And
it's really terrible.
It's so accessible, and it's the one
it is, and it's very accepted.
Oh yeah, that's the one where they're just like they act like it's different than all the rest of them. It's not
different, but there again, you've got big tobacco, big alcohol, big pharmaceutical. And I'm not trying to tie them all in together, but alcohol industries got a lot of money, and they're gonna push it whatever. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, there were still alcohol commercials on TV, like Johnny Walker, and they showed people drinking. Yeah, which you never see that now. But they had cigarette commercials too. So
is it just beer that they show on TV now?
Just beer.
Okay, so they don't show. Okay, so I guess I haven't thought about this.
Because I remember like hard alcohol commercials back in the day, which we lived in Nigeria when I was a kid in the 60s. We came back in 69, and they were still on TV then. But it wasn't long after that they stopped that.
I guess I've never thought about that. I guess I've never seen a liquor commercial but I guess we just see the beer commercials.
Yeah, beer. And you'll never see people actually drinking it. You see them having fun and doing things and stuff. But they're not actually consuming the product.
So then that's not allowed?
Yes, that is correct.
Oh, okay, cool. See, I'm learning.
That is correct.
I did not know that.
It's like they have to give this kind of backhand.
Now I'm going to watch every commercial.
Yeah.
Why aren't y'all drinking this?
Yeah, exactly.
Man, I mean, you can't get through a football game. You can't get through... No, I mean, it's everywhere. And then at the restaurants, it's the gas stations. It's like, if I was struggling with like cocaine, I'd have to go call somebody sketchy up. We'd have to go meet up and do some underhanded dealing. You know what I'm saying? But like, if I'm going to relapse on alcohol, I just walk into the gas station. I could walk from here to that gas station and relapse. It's crazy. It's so accepted.
Or you could just go buy some Listerine or something.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
I can't. It's so accepted. It makes it more dangerous almost because more people, and then driving drunk, like that's so dangerous. But
when I was young, that was common. It wasn't until Mothers Against Drunk Driving in the early 80s, the huge push for breathalyzers and don't drink and drive and all that stuff, which is good. Nobody should ever drink and drive, you know, but that started back then. I want to say early 80s.
So there was a time when there was vehicles where you could drink and drive, like legally?
You couldn't legally, but nobody really did anything.
Okay, they weren't enforcing
You know,
it. Okay.
Yeah, I remember when we were kids, when I was a teenager, you know, riding around, and one of my friends used to say, oh yeah, you know, so-and-so pulled us over, but he just took our beer and dumped it out. It's like nothing happened.
Wow.
You know?
Man. They're getting stricter and stricter. It's like, I wonder, because I listen to a ton of podcasts. I'm always listening to debates and things of that nature. I wonder, like with our opioid crisis and with like fentanyl and stuff like this, it's like people are, like there's always there's a debate about like, you know, what do you think would happen if they made like all drugs legal? Do you think
they did that in Portugal?
How did that go?
For a short time, I think they changed it. They did it in Portugal, and closer to home, they did it in Portland, I want to say. Like Portland, Oregon, because they were having such a time. They were just for users, not drug dealers, you know what I mean? But like personal use amounts, but it turned into this huge problem. So I don't know what the answer to that is.
Yeah, I don't know how to solve that.
You know, it's a lot of things, you know, it's like the mental health crisis and us not having access to mental health help and our society. I don't know. It's confusing. I stay home a lot.
Yeah.
I don't go anywhere anymore. People confuse me and I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are confused right now.
Yeah.
It's a confusing time.
Yes, it is. It is.
And I don't know, like so I'm 30. I just turned 30. And when I turned 27 is kind of where I started like, maybe I should figure some stuff out. I just kind of went with the flow forever and just, you know, was just out, you know, where can we go have fun? Like, you know, I guess when I had kids, I started thinking maybe I should start thinking about
you want to have a good example for your kids and stuff.
The more I study, the more I learn about things, the more I'm realizing that first of all, how much I didn't know. And then the more I study, the more it's harder to tell like how to actually know anything sometimes. It's so confusing.
But life is all about learning, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a journey, not a destination.
Right. So I'm taking in all this information, and a lot of times it's like, this is a lot of, especially with the internet, maybe it's just a lot of conflicting information.
Well, that's the thing too, you know, it's like when you're doing research, which my degree is in biology, so research is a whole lot of science, being in science.
Right.
But you have to pull from a lot of different sources. You know, a lot of people, especially with the internet, have a tendency to live in an echo chamber. Especially, you'll notice your algorithms, if you're interested in something, pretty soon your algorithms will start showing you only those things or things related to that or whatever. You know, people think, oh, my phone's listening to me. Now it's showing me, you know, yoga classes because I was talking about yoga. But it's true. You know, it does listen to you to a point. People say, no, it doesn't. Well, it's if you don't look outside the box, and it's harder and harder to look outside the box with a phone in your hand all the time.
Right.
You know, it's confusing to me because on one hand, you got all of the history of all of mankind and every bit of knowledge you could ever access forever in your hand.
Right.
And yet people seem dumber. I don't get it. Because they only see what they want to see, and they only hear what they want to hear, and they don't want to listen to anybody else's viewpoint, especially if it conflicts with their culture, how they were brought up, and what they believe in. Anything that conflicts with that, they want to shut it down if they're not an evolved individual.
Yeah. It's very hard to go against our biases.
That is correct.
We kind of like pick once we kind of, I don't know what age, but I think a lot of us, we form this worldview, and like, it's incredibly hard to change your worldview, which even doing this podcast, I've been able to change how I think about a lot of stuff just by talking to a variety of people, you know, and then you hear different sides. You're like, oh, well, I never thought about it like that. It's like you said, it's easy to get into these cycles where all I'm hearing is information from like one side, and okay, well, it's easy to
that
get.
is correct.
It's easy to get filled up.
It's easy to believe that that's all you ever hear,
right?
You know, and a lot of people don't have the opportunity to travel outside the United States, and I understand it's expensive, or more expensive now than it used to be anyway. But some people don't even travel to different parts of the United States, and the United States is vast and varied. I mean, you think about a peanut farmer from Georgia compared to a lobsterman from Maine.
Yeah.
That's extreme examples, you know, of culture differences within one country.
Right.
You know, it's very
different. It's man, I wonder how many people like, because there's got to be people that never leave their hometown except for like a vacation once a year.
Yeah, and then they go to a place that's probably pretty similar from where they live.
Yeah, or just tuned up for tourists. that's my problem. I go on vacation, and it's just because I go on cruises every year, and that whole trip is just a big old tourist attraction. So I'm probably not getting much actual culture.
I encourage you to do independent travel. I travel a lot.
Yeah, I want to. I'm really.
And I encourage you to do independent travel.
I need my kids to get a little older. And then because I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Oh, yeah.
Things are very difficult right now.
I understand.
Going to Target is difficult. So I think about going somewhere far away. But no, when they get older, I definitely plan on taking them. Man, traveling is so much fun. Even these cruises are a lot of fun.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
I would, I want to experience more. I want to, because like you said, like people are so different. And like, I've even noticed talking on this podcast that a lot of people are very similar just because of the area.
True.
So it's like, I can get, there's like this one architect I'm thinking like in my mind, like one setup of a person that I could find a guest that could sit here and tell me a lot of the same stuff. Like just, it's so easy.
Yeah.
It's just like our towns, like old white dude, you could get you could get 100 of them.
It's very homogenized. It's very homogenized here. I grew up in a university town where half the town is the university. There's no factories there. If you're not connected with the university, you don't have a job pretty much.
Wow.
And it's a large university and it's extremely diverse. My dad was the chair of international studies program there for a long time. That's why we lived overseas, because he was on a teaching program.
Okay, so he was
he's a professor.
Yeah. Cool, cool.
And
what did he study?
My dad has his political science was his first PhD, and then he went on to get a PhD in business administration.
Nice.
And we traveled some when we lived in Nigeria. We went to Europe a couple times. And then, we traveled some when I came back, but as an adult, I've traveled extensively. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to catch up.
And it's really important. But I think what people have to keep in mind, because a lot of folks don't have the opportunity to travel outside, their area, whatever. And they think that people are so different the world over. And really the only thing that's different is culture. People want the same things. They want safety for their families. Right. They want food and shelter for their families, and they want to be happy. And that is universal for every human on the planet.
Right.
There is not a human that doesn't want those things. And I think that's really important for people to keep that in mind.
Right. That we're all the same. That's what gets me down about that. To me, like when I look at a lot of world history and I look at like where technology is and stuff like that, it's wild. We're still like fighting as much as we are.
We're so primitive.
It's crazy.
Humans are so primitive. People are like, oh, we have this technology thing in my hand that whatever, but yet we still have like lizard brain so much.
Yeah.
It's so much.
It's sad because it's like you would think like we would get to a place where it's like, okay, we would solve like war as like a problem, like we solved other problems, like it's hot all the time, so we need air conditioners. So you put an air conditioner and a heater in your house. Okay, now we live comfortable here. It's like this is an inconvenience, so let's solve this. But it's like war is like one of the biggest ultimate inconveniences ever, and we can't solve it.
Yeah, but it's also a big huge money maker.
Yeah,
and people fight over religion and they fight over resources.
Right.
And mostly resources. And the thing about the planet is we don't see it too much in the United States because we have a huge country with loads of resources and lots of space. And it's just, I've lived in other countries, and the US there's a reason people want to come here.
Right.
Our government may not be perfect in any administration.
Right.
I don't care what administration it is, but overall, this is the place.
Yeah.
This is the place. There are other countries that have better healthcare and stuff than we do, but they're usually pretty small, like the Scandinavian countries. They're small and they're very stable, but it's a different setup than what we have. So people can't, it's like comparing apples to oranges. People are like, well, why can't we have healthcare like Sweden? Well, it's totally different everything.
Yeah, we're huge and have all this stuff.
About it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
On the war deal, I had a thought the other day that kind of made some sense. At least I was thinking, like, I keep always thinking, like, why are we still having wars? Like, why is it? But let's say all the borders in all the world stayed like this for the rest of the time. Let's say we had no more wars, because wars are, like you said, a lot of times they're about expanding, they're about resources, they're about, that stuff. Mm-hmm. If you're in the United States, that sounds great. Yeah, let's stop fighting because we're set. Mm-hmm. And some of these other countries aren't as set. And so maybe that's why it makes sense to be like, hey, we should go take this to expand.
Right. Well, and a lot of it, I liken it to a lot of countries, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, where water is in scarce supply in a lot of places. Food is in scarce supply, in many places. And they have a burgeoning population, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And I don't even have time in this podcast to go into it. But population dynamics is something I'm really interested in. Anyways, it's kind of like, at the water hole in the Serengeti Plains. Water hole, when it's rainy season, lots of water for everybody. Everybody drinks at the water hole and gets along. The water buffalo and the zebras and the leopards and the lions, and everybody's drinking and it's no problem. So the water hole starts to dry up during dry season, and it's getting drier. And pretty soon those animals are having to get closer to each other to drink that water. And pretty soon there's only a little bit of water, and they're going to fight over that water. And it's the same with people.
Yeah.
It's the same with people. As the world population expands, and it's especially expanding in the places that can least afford it to expand.
So those people are going to fight
and want to leave that area. And, the people that already have the stuff, we have the stuff. We don't want those other folks coming and taking our stuff.
Right. That makes sense.
That's
from that angle.
And unfortunately, that's really primitive, but that's how humans are.
Right. Do you think? So populations are still going up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I forget what it is. I want to say Malthusian curve. We learned this when I was in biology, but we're supposed to reach carrying capacity of the Earth, which is, I think, 10 billion people. It wasn't supposed to happen until 2050, but it's on target to happen sooner than that. Now, that said, in developed countries like ours, South Korea most notably, because they're having a deficit in birth rate. Europe,
that's what I was thinking, is that the birth rate is down in some countries. So I didn't know if population was still going up.
Yeah, in places like sub-Saharan Africa, burgeoning. I think India is starting to get a handle on theirs because they've instituted a government program of like family planning and stuff like that. But it's still, because of the past, it's still like getting bigger. You know what I mean? And places like that, like I said, where they have the least resources are the places with the population that's growing the fastest still, So even Latin America slowed down immensely. In 1970, the average Mexican woman had like 6.3 children or something like that. And now it's down to like 2.1. So just in 50 years, it's come drastically down.
Yeah, having kids is wild because you could just keep having kids. That is a crazy thought to me. Like, I have my 2 kids and we're done and we're chilling. And that's like, I just like, I feel like in my mind, if I can get them to where they need to be, then I've done what I can do.
Yeah, but at least, you have that, option. You know, when I was born, which was in 1962, that wasn't really an option.
Right.
You know, it had just started. I think they invented the pill in like 1960 or 61, like right around in there. And it wasn't good in the beginning. They had to work a lot of bugs out of it. So women couldn't really, there was no family planning. There wasn't much, you know, and there were like diaphragms and I think IUDs, but it wasn't as common. That's why you have, you know, people routinely say, "Oh, my grandpa had 13 children," and
my
you know, whatever.
My grandma was the 15th kid.
Yeah, because they didn't have the option to control their family size or to time the children. You know what I mean? Like that's another thing too. You don't want most people, not all, don't want 2 children in diapers at the same time, or they want to
we did that.
Get one out of diapers and then start another one, or get one in school and then start another one, or whatever. They can space their family planning out, which alleviates a lot of problems. And a lot of these countries, they don't have the family planning option, even though the World Health Organization tries to help with that. Right. Still, if you're a young woman living in a village in Africa and the closest clinic is 8 miles away and it's only open 2 days a week and you have to walk there and walk back. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and that's common, you know, it's common.
Wow. So yeah, that makes sense. See, I'm glad I'm asking questions. I'm learning stuff. Yeah, so that's why they're having more kids in the areas that are struggling, right?
Yes, exactly. And I think it's getting better.
And that's probably the decline in ours too, is we have so much control of when
we have a lot of control, and people are really realizing it's very expensive to raise children, and you know, there's a lot of different factors in that, and other developed countries too. South Korea right now is in a deficit; they're in a negative birth rate. Japan, negative birth rate. Italy of all places, a Catholic country. Yeah. Negative birth rate, you know?
That's why I was curious when we were talking about the population stuff, because I've heard that. I don't know if it's Rogan. I listen to too much Rogan. But that is crazy that you can, but I mean, it makes sense though, because we're planning stuff out more. I wonder
what makes me crazy. I'm going to interject right here.
Oh, that's fine.
Do have an audience.
Yeah, definitely.
What makes me crazy is people in the United States and other developed countries. I lived in Canada for like 1.5 years. They want to apply their options and their standards to other countries that don't have those options. Well, why don't they just do this? Well, why don't they just do that? Well, that's just obvious to me. Why don't do that? Because they fucking can't.
Right.
Excuse my French.
Oh, no, you good.
You know, it's like, because they can't. Because, you know, somebody wants to go get water because they don't have running water, so they have to go carry it in a jar on their head at the lake that's 5 miles away. But on the way, she might get raped or killed or anything. You know what I'm saying? It's like not that freaking easy, man.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah, we look at other people and
we're so blessed here. So every morning I wake up and I've got electricity and running water. And I'm just like, I struck the jackpot when I was born in the United States. Struck the fucking jackpot.
That is wild that we have no control over where we're born at. And we have like all this, that is crazy. Like not that we shouldn't be prideful where we're from, because I'm proud to be American, obviously. But, you know, like it's one of those things like, it was just like the luck of the draw. It was just random as shit. And that you just happened to be in like the best place. You could be a street kid in Guatemala living under a bridge sniffing glue so you didn't get hungry.
Yeah. You could be that.
Yeah. There's lots of like, I don't know. And that's why but this is why it's important to talk to different people, because then you learn, you have to challenge your deals. Because I like even a minute ago, I just had a aha moment earlier, because I'm like, oh, well, me and my wife, we just had 2 kids and now we're just hanging out. But I never thought about the other way. Like you have to get challenged. You have to talk to people. You have to learn new things. You have to, I try to take in different media. I like to hear all the different sides. I am glad though. I am very glad that you know, that the election is over though. Like
God, I couldn't wait for that to be over. I was like, just get it over with, man.
This, you know, so I voted. This would be my 3rd time voting, because I got to vote when I was 18. Yeah. Okay. And this was the time where I tried to get informed because I've always been just kind of like, man, fuck politics, all this stuff that, it's going to be bad for my brain, which it was. And I really got into it. And then, dude, like, even like 2 weeks before the actual like election day, I remember just sitting there thinking like, I was scrolling on X, which was, I mean, that's not even a good thing to be doing anyway.
Never.
And I just remember thinking to myself, like, this cannot be good for me. Like, I'm so glad I really am glad it's over with. And there's some people that's let down. There's some people that's happy. That's and that's just
My experience has been that no matter who's in the White House, my day-to-day life does not change at all. None of it changes. The first election I could vote in was Reagan, and in 1980, 80. And anyways, and I've been through loads of whatever, and it's always nothing's changed.
Yeah,
ever. People get so wound up.
Were they always this?
What they don't
wound up?
understand is, and it may be different this time. I don't know. I haven't lived through it yet. Whatever, but we have a system of checks and balances. It's not absolute power. It's not.
Yeah.
So there's a reason that the president cannot introduce bills into Congress.
Yeah.
That's written into our Constitution.
Yeah, it's also, and it'll swing back the other way too. So like, it's like just because it's Republican now, it's going to go back. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's just because people, especially us, we'll get tired of something like it, and we'll say, well, we'll try this. Like our whole system is just like, oh, that was trash. Let's try this, and then we just go back and forth.
I think what a lot of people don't understand too is that, and I don't even have a great handle on it myself, is that because this is a global economy and we have globalization and stuff. We're not an island. Everything that happens in the outside world affects us. So no matter what decisions are made here, the outside world will affect those decisions no matter what. We can't, no, we're not going to go back to 1965. It's just not going to freaking happen.
No.
What blows my mind is like how many people think that the president determines the price of gas. That's not how that works. There's a thing called OPEC. And I think most of these people are probably too young or weren't even born to remember gas rationing and the energy crisis of 72 to 74.
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
like we went through all that. And it was because OPEC controls the prices of gas and the flow of gas.
And so
like,
what they change their price depending on kind of...
Yeah, so most of the Middle East countries is where sweet crude is produced. We produce a lot of shale oil. And I forget what the other kind is called. There are different levels of oil. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So there's, commodities, speculators, what they call futures, OPEC. OPEC, the producers of the Middle East, control how much is being produced, and that determines the price, and stuff like that. You can watch, there's two oil indexes. One's Brent crude and one's the sweet crude. So.
And they control what the gas prices are. And they don't have
to an extent. It's not direct. It's not direct because there's a lot to it. It's like, yes, they produce oil, but oil has to be refined. And we have refineries. We have a lot of refineries.
Yeah.
And
yeah, like when we go through Houston to go on a cruise, we always drive by. It's like this, like as far as the eye can see, it's just.
Oh yeah, I've got another house in Crystal Beach, which is right next to Galveston, and there's nothing but refineries on the other side of the bay. That's all refineries, and we see the tankers waiting to come into the bay to go down the waterway and get loaded up and stuff like that. So
it's cool. It's cool, but like the first night we leave out of Galveston. And you go out and it's night for the first time on the boat, the big cruise ship, and you look around, you just see all these tankers. You can see the
tanks,
lights,
and you see the rigs and the jack boats.
It's really cool.
Yeah, when you fly in, I don't fly into Houston very often. I usually fly into Dallas, but flying into Houston, you come in over the Gulf, and if it's clear and you can see all that stuff from the air, it's really cool. Yeah, it's super cool.
I like on a cruise ship. I like when we get out far enough to where you don't see anything? Like normally when you wake up so you get on at like noon one day, you sail off at like 4, and then you go to sleep. You can still kind of see like the lights of Galveston and all that stuff. And you wake up that next day and you can just 360 and it's just water.
Just water.
That's freaky.
Yeah.
But it kind of like reminds you, like you feel small, even though you're on like the 18-story like party boat.
Yeah, yeah.
with a full theater, 18 restaurants, and a casino.
Yeah.
You still feel super, super small. All right, last thing, because I know it's getting late. I was thinking, so I've interviewed a bunch of tattoo artists, like just straight up artists. I don't think anybody has actually owned the shop. What is it like? And especially you did it all these years. What is it like running a tattoo shop?
Okay, so when I first opened, of course, it was just me tattooing in 92. And I worked by myself until, I want to say 97 or 98. And I hired a girl named Jenny and I apprenticed her. And then after that, it's like I apprenticed another girl and she worked with me. So for a long time, well, because the original building wasn't what it is now.
Right.
The original building was just that front where the lobby is now.
Okay.
It was that.
Okay.
And I built the next section on in 2000. And it was me and Jenny. And then I built the next section on in 2007. And then the next section on in 2010. So I built more rooms on. But I don't know. It was weird. Like for a long time, I let people work on a percentage, but that was too hard to get a handle on. So I just started charging rent. And I mean, I was tattooing too, so.
So you didn't see, well, I mean, did you have to do a bunch of managing or not really because they were on a rent type deal? How much managing did you have to do? Like, did you have to manage them? Like,
no, I mean, they
kind of just let them go.
So the law is because if on a percentage, that's why I knocked off the percentage, because technically when they're on a percentage, you should be taking taxes. Like you should be, or 1099ing them or something like that. You know what I mean? Okay. And it just got confusing. I was like, I'm just going to charge rent because that was legal. That's legal. If you do a percentage, you have to be taking the taxes out on them, or you have to 1099 them or something. I don't know how that works. Yeah. But the industry over for years, and even places still do this, they work on a percentage. But I was too concerned with getting in trouble with the labor board or whatever, so I just went to rent. So then it was just like they're independent contractors. They're renting those rooms. It's like a beauty salon. Yeah. They just come and go as they please, whatever. So, yeah.
How was your experience with that? Was it normally chill? Like everything was good? Do you have any wild occurring? Like you don't have to name nobody.
No.
Like that,
I mean, I got, some people you have to chase them around for their rent. Yeah. But that's just like being a landlord, that's irritating.
Did you feel like a landlord kind of like in that situation?
Yeah.
I just imagine because I've been tattooed by a bunch of crazy people. But a lot of tattoo artists got a little twinge of crazy. But I mean, it's like I deal with a lot of freedom.
There's a lot of freedom,
right?
That comes with it. It's like you have to be disciplined. There are a lot of people who want to work for themselves, but are completely unprepared to work for themselves,
right?
And they have no control and no discipline, no organization, nothing.
Yeah,
And I had a guy that working for me for a little while, and he was fine. He was a good artist, but he was always late with his rent or not showing up and this and that. And finally he told me, he said, look, I really like working for you and working here. He said, but I have to go to a different shop because I need structure. He said, I can't just pay rent. He said, I have to have somebody that tells me what hours to be there and this and that, or whatever. But at least he was smart enough to realize that.
Yeah, that's like actually self-aware.
Really self-aware. Yeah.
Like, the lack of structure is killing me.
Exact.
That makes sense. I haven't had much structure. I've worked for pretty much myself and then like family stuff since I got out of high school. The little deal with the military was like which I'm glad I did because that was like my like class for structure. Basically, they gave me structure and then I took that. But if I didn't want to work tomorrow, I don't work tomorrow. And so there is, you like you're saying, you got to be disciplined. You got to still I
was always just so driven, man. I never wanted to be poor again. I never wanted to be poor.
I understand.
And I was just like, that was my biggest thing, is I remember not having any food. Yeah, and I remember not living with no electricity, not because I forgot to pay the bill, but because I didn't have any money to pay the bill.
Right.
And that was a long time ago, many years ago, 46 years ago. But,
it's a good lesson though.
Yeah.
It
shaped who I am now.
Yeah.
I think I meet people, they're like, well, I don't work. The fuck is paying your bills, man?
Yeah, I still don't understand that one.
I don't understand that at all. These people are completely enabled, and I just can't wrap my head around it. I can't,
I've always been, I don't know. I've always been able to figure it out. This was a recording studio before, and that's where I had a lot of the equipment to even start this deal. And I could just, I don't know. I could even when it got tight, it was just I could almost will people to come give me money. I can't even explain it. I could just want it so bad and just put extra effort in here and there. And
the effort is what does it, you know, and showing up. That's the other thing too. I see it in the tattoo industry a lot, and I know you're probably aware of it too. A lot of tattoo artists, they just won't show up, or they just take a million breaks while they're doing a tattoo or whatever. They have this excuse and that excuse.
Oh,
and I, like I said, I was never world's greatest tattoo artist. I was a good, solid tattoo artist at reasonable prices, and I always showed up. No. I was there every single day when I said I would be there. The shop was open, the hours it was supposed to be open, and I was there taking walk-ins or my appointments, whatever.
Yeah.
Consistency, man. Consistency in life will get you so far. So far.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this has turned into a whole side quest deal that has taken up this huge part of my life now. But I'm just so consistent at it. And that's why I know it's going to work. I know.
Yeah.
You just got to keep on doing it. You got to keep on showing up.
Yeah.
Keep on finding people to talk to. Keep on doing the back end stuff, figuring out the video, figuring out how to post, when to post. And just, I don't know, but it's just like anything. The more you put into it, the more you get out. And I'm excited. I think this is going to work. And I've enjoyed talking to you. I definitely thank you for coming on.
Great. Yeah.
So Modern Primitives, that's your main.
Yeah.
That's pretty much your main deal.
Yep.
Awesome. So, what do you have the address for that, or how do you plug that?
907 New Boston Road.
Yeah.
We have.
You on the internet?
Liz just built us a website, and it's modern-primitives.com. We just built it. And we have a Facebook, but right now Facebook isn't allowing us to post because we posted something that went against their community guidelines or whatever.
Oh,
and I think our page is up, but I can't put any new posts on it. So,
dang. Yeah.
Facebook is funny that way. You can put one of my friends she said, well, I'm going to go punch the clock. AI got her just like that because it was punch.
Arming the clocks out here.
Really? Really artificial intelligence,
Yeah, that is the thing. They're going to grab things. They're going to grab hot words, keywords.
Yes, exact.
Oh, I mess up all the time posting videos where I say things and they're I can just tell oh, that did bad. I'm pretty sure they probably took that out of context. One of these words popped up or whatever. I had a whole episode get took down one time on YouTube.
Really?
Yeah, and it was like a joke. It was clearly a joke. I even looked at
artificial intelligence doesn't know jokes.
No, it doesn't know jokes.
No.
No.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
No, it didn't. So it took me down. So I'm having to. I think a lot of people doing this, which I said we were going to stop, but I kept talking. But a lot of people doing this right now, I think are self-censoring.
Okay.
Because we kind of know, if you go watch people get on live,
the keywords and stuff.
Yeah. So
Can you go beep it? Can you beep it?
Yes, but then it's okay, well, let's say me and you talk for an hour and 30 minutes, and then every time I talk, if I get in here and say what I really want to say, sometimes I'm going to have to go in, and that's just another step of editing. So in my head, I'm I can make this easier on myself later if I just don't say this, or if I dance around this. I think a lot of people are dancing around like words and
yeah, I long for the old days of the internet when just anything went. Yeah. I miss those days.
The Wild West.
It was the Wild West.
Yeah. But anyways, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's been enjoyable.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank y'all for tapping in the channel. If you just want to see the clips, go to the Joe Teel Podcast clips. I clip it all down. You see the short form. But if you like the long episodes, go check out the full episodes. Like, share, subscribe, do all that cool stuff. It really helps me. I want to keep making more content. Just need you to tune in and listen to me. And y'all have a blessed night. Appreciate y'all for tapping in. Thank you for coming.